There are people who walk through life with a constant companion, not a friend beside them, but a voice within them. Their own voice, narrating, questioning, debating, sometimes arguing. You'll find them whispering in grocery aisles, muttering while they work, having full conversations with no one visible. To an outsider, it might look strange, but to them, it's simply how they think, how they process, how they exist in a world that moves too fast for silent contemplation. They aren't losing their grip on reality. They're holding on to it in their own way. The psychology behind people who talk to themselves isn't about madness or loneliness. It's about cognition. It's about the human need to externalize the internal chaos, to give shape to thoughts that feel too big to stay silent. Drop a comment if you've ever caught yourself doing this. Let's see how many of us relate. You see, for some people, thinking isn't enough. Their minds move so quickly that thoughts blur together, layering on top of each other until nothing makes sense. Speaking out loud slows that down. It creates structure. When you hear your own voice saying the words, your brain processes them differently. It's not just thought anymore. It's sound. It's real. Psychologists call this self-directed speech, and it serves a powerful function. It organizes chaos. Think about a child learning to tie their shoes. They talk themselves through it. Loop, pull, around, through. That's not random babbling. That's cognitive scaffolding. The voice guides the action. What many don't realize is that adults never truly stop doing this. We just learn to do it silently. But some people, the ones who talk to themselves often, they never fully internalize that silence. Or perhaps they realize that silence wasn't helping them think. It was just making them quieter. There's something deeply human about the need to hear yourself think. Language isn't just communication with others. It's communication with yourself. When you're facing a difficult decision, talking it through out loud creates distance. You're no longer just feeling the decision, you're examining it. The emotional weight shifts when you say, should I do this? What if it goes wrong? But what if it goes right? Suddenly, you're both the questioner and the answer. You're your own counsel. Research in cognitive psychology has shown that self-talk enhances problem-solving abilities. When people verbalize their thought process, they catch errors more quickly. They notice patterns they would have missed in silence. Athletes do this constantly. You'll see them muttering before a performance, coaching themselves, building confidence through repetition. You've got this. Stay focused. Breathe. It's not superstition. It's neuroscience. The brain responds to spoken affirmations differently than it does to thought alone. But here's where it gets interesting. People who talk to themselves frequently aren't just problem-solving. They're also companioning themselves. In moments of solitude, that inner voice becomes presence. It fills the silence with familiarity. It's like having a conversation partner who always understands the context, who never needs explanation. For those who spend a lot of time alone, self-talk isn't a symptom of loneliness. It's a solution to it. Yet society treats it with suspicion. We've been conditioned to see public self-talk as a sign of instability. People who talk to themselves in public get stares, judgments, quiet discomfort from those around them. But why? Because we've equated silence with sanity and vocalization with disorder. That's a cultural construct, not a psychological truth. Some of the most brilliant minds in history were known for talking to themselves. Einstein, Tesla, Virginia Woolf. Their self-talk wasn't dysfunction. It was how they accessed genius. There's also a difference between types of self-talk. Positive self-talk, the kind that motivates and encourages, has been linked to higher resilience and emotional regulation. I can handle this. I've done hard things before. That kind of internal dialogue builds psychological strength. On the other hand, negative self-talk, the harsh inner critic that berates and diminishes, can spiral into anxiety and depression. I always mess things up. Why can't I get anything right? When that voice takes over, it doesn't guide. It punishes. What's fascinating is that many people who talk to themselves are actually engaging in a form of cognitive behavioral therapy without realizing it. They're challenging their own thoughts, reframing situations, testing different perspectives. When you say out loud, okay, maybe it's not as bad as I think, you're performing a therapeutic intervention on yourself. You're creating space between emotion and reaction. That's emotional intelligence in action. But there's another layer. Self-talk is often tied to working memory. When people talk themselves through tasks, they're offloading cognitive burden. Instead of holding every step in their head, they vocalize it. This frees up mental resources for other things. It's why you might find yourself saying keys, wallet, phone before leaving the house. You're not reminding someone else. You're creating an external checklist because your brain is already managing 100 other things. Interestingly, studies have shown that people who use second-person self-talk, talking to themselves as you instead of I, often experience better emotional regulation. You can do this. Feels more supportive than I can do this. Why? Because it creates psychological distance. It's as if you're coaching a separate person. That separation reduces the emotional intensity of difficult moments. It's a small shift in language that creates a major shift in mindset. Now let's talk about the social stigma. People who talk to themselves in public often feel embarrassed when they're caught. They laugh it off or apologize. But why should they? What they're doing is perfectly natural. The only reason it feels strange is because we've normalized hiding our thought processes. We've made silence the default. But silence doesn't mean someone isn't thinking. It just means you can't hear the processing happening inside them. For neurodivergent individuals, self-talk often serves an even more critical function. People with ADHD, autism, or anxiety disorders frequently use vocalized thought to manage sensory overload, organize scattered attention, or soothe overwhelming emotions. For them, self-talk isn't optional. It's regulatory. It's how their nervous system finds equilibrium. Judging them for it is like judging someone for breathing deeply when they're stressed. It's a coping mechanism, not a character flaw. There's also a creative dimension to self-talk. Writers, artists, and musicians often vocalize their ideas before bringing them into form. Talking through a concept helps clarify it. It tests whether an idea sounds as good out loud as it did in the head. Many creative breakthroughs happen in these moments of vocalized thought. The act of speaking engages different neural pathways than silent thinking. It activates language centers in ways that pure imagination doesn't. This is why some people pace while they talk to themselves. Movement plus vocalization equals enhanced cognitive processing. But here's the paradox. People who talk to themselves are often deeply introspective. They're constantly analyzing, reflecting, questioning. Yet that same introspection can make them feel disconnected from others. Because while they're comfortable conversing with themselves, they might struggle with external conversation. Not because they lack social skills, but because their internal dialogue is so rich that surface-level small talk feels hollow. They crave depth. They want conversations that match the intensity of their inner world, and yet that inner world is where they feel safest. When you talk to yourself, you don't have to filter. You don't have to perform. You can be messy, contradictory, raw. You can say things you'd never say to another person. That freedom is liberating. But it can also become isolating if it's the only kind of conversation you have. Balance matters. Self-talk is healthy, but it can't fully replace human connection. Even the most self-sufficient minds need external mirrors sometimes. Perspectives that challenge or simply witness. Psychologically, self-talk is also linked to self-concept. The way you talk to yourself shapes how you see yourself. If your inner dialogue is compassionate, you build self-esteem. If it's critical, you erode it. This is why becoming aware of your self-talk patterns is so important. Many people don't realize how harsh they are with themselves until they catch themselves mid-thought. Would you talk to a friend that way? If not, why do you talk to yourself that way? Changing self-talk isn't easy because it's often automatic. These patterns form over years, influenced by early relationships, past failures, and internalized beliefs. But it is possible. It starts with noticing, catching the thought, naming it, then choosing a different response. So when you see someone talking to themselves, don't assume dysfunction. Consider that they might be problem-solving, self-soothing, or simply thinking in their natural language. They're not broken, they're processing. And in a world that demands constant noise and distraction, maybe they're the ones who figured out how to stay grounded. By listening to the one voice that's been with them from the beginning, their own. Subscribe to this channel if you love understanding how the human mind really works. Because at the end of the day, we all talk to ourselves. Some of us just do it out loud. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, there might be something deeply right about it. It's honest. It's human. And it's a reminder that sometimes the most important conversations we have aren't with other people. They're with ourselves. And those conversations deserve to be heard.